everybody, this is Judy at Judi in the Kitchen. Today we're going to make some meatless burger patties, and the recipe is in the description box below. Now this really is not a hard recipe to do, but there is a number of ingredients. They're very flavorful, they're very tasty. To start with, the easiest thing to do would be to mix together the dry ingredients. And here I have a half a cup of quick cooking oats. If you only have old-fashioned rolled oats, the best thing to do would be to take a half a cup of those, put them in your food processor and just pulse them a little bit just to kind of break them up some. They don't need to be made into flour, but just coarsely chopped up a little bit there. And then I have things as simple as possible. 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and I have conversions in the recipe if you want to use fresh garlic. And a tablespoon and a half, I know that sounds like a lot, tablespoon and a half of parsley flakes, dried parsley flakes, a teaspoon of dried oregano, a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons of dried onion granules. And again, if you don't want to use the dried, I do have the conversions for fresh in the recipe, and if you want to use fresh, you would just add them right at this point. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to saute them or anything like that. And then we have a 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground black pepper, a 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt of your choice. I have pink Himalayan sea salt here. And now I just want to kind of toss these together just to mix them up some. Alright, next I have approximately a cup of cooked brown rice. Use whatever rice you are happy with. This is a very forgiving, very flexible recipe. So that's about a cup of cooked rice of your choice. I'm just going to keep tossing it as we go here just to make life a little bit easier in the end, so it'll blend together. And now, here's the really flexible part. This is roughly 2 cups of beans of your choice. What I have here, you're going to think I'm nuts, but I'm showing you how flexible this is. This is the 15 bean soup mix that I have completely cooked. I bought them dry. I did not use this flavoring packet. No, these are just the plain beans. I cook them and then freeze them. I usually have some sort of beans that I've cooked from dry in the freezer ready to go at any point in time. So it's roughly 2 cups. Now what I did was I put them in the food processor and pulsed them just a little bit to break them up. They don't need to be ground up real fine like a hummus. If you do that, no harm done. It's not a problem. But I just wouldn't put them in there absolutely whole, because then they're going to be, you're going to have chunks of beans that are not going to blend up, mix up very well. If you don't have dried beans that you've cooked, no sweat, open a can of any bean of your choice, whether it's kidney beans, great northern beans, white beans, red beans, black beans, any kind of bean you want, and it will work. Lentils will work. Literally any bean or any legume or any combination thereof will work perfectly fine. Okay, the next thing is 1 6-ounce can of tomato paste, and you just want to mix that in there really well. Alright, after you've got those fairly well mixed, you're going to see this mixture is dry. Relatively dry. That's really too dry, so at this point you're going to need to add some water, and I usually just pour a little water in there at a time, but for your sake, so we know how much water I actually add, we're going to do it by the tablespoon, and I'm just going to add a little bit at a time. I'm going to start with 4 tablespoons, which is 1/4 of a cup. We're just going to start with that. We want to moisten this so that it sticks together well, but not so wet that you can't form it into patties or that it's really sticky to handle. That would be more wet than you need. If you wind up with it really wet and you want to fix that problem, you can just add some more oats to the mixture and allow it to sit for 10-15 minutes or so and give those oats an opportunity to soak up some of that moisture. You can see it's starting to look like a ground beef mixture. And the tomatoes are in there for flavor, not to necessarily make it look like ground beef, although it does look like it. Now, I still want to add just a little bit more water to this. It's starting to do what I want it to do, but I want it a little bit more moist. I'm going to go with 2 tablespoons more of water, and that will probably be plenty. Once it is all mixed together and moist, but not wet, then you can scoop it into a hot frying pan with just a little bit of oil in there. And I use 1/2 cup measurements for 1 burger patty. You can make them as big or as small as you want. For me and my husband, we find 1/2 cup seems to be just about right. And like this, you will get roughly 6 patties. Sometimes the amount of beans will vary a little bit based on whatever I'm doing, and if I use a can, I might get 5. If I use, maybe I have a little extra rice to throw in there or a little more beans or something, I might get as many as 7. So it's going to vary some, but this is right about where we want it. You see, it's about the texture of ground beef mixture. It kind of looks like it too. So we're going to clean this up and go to the stove. All right, you want to take a large skillet and warm it up over medium heat or so, or just a little bit above that. And I'm going to use about a tablespoon or so, maybe a tablespoon and a half there of extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to swirl it around. Sometimes I do this as I'm going, but for you, I went ahead and did it ahead of time. I portioned it out into 1/2 cup portions, and I actually have 6. I had a little bit extra to make maybe another 1/2 of a patty, and I didn't want to go with a small one, so I just added that to the existing patties. Okay, now these are not patties as they are, obviously, so I'm just going to take a hunk of it, and with my spatula and my hands, just kind of form it into a patty, just like that. A nice thick patty in the hot, medium warm, there, oil frying pan. These things you do not want to try to cook fast. I'm actually going to turn it down to 4 right now, where 5 is right at medium. You want them to cook slow because they're going to be having a tendency to brown quickly initially, and you don't want them to burn. I'm just kind of forming them as I go here. And you want to cook these like you would pretty much any patty. You want to cook it until it's brown on one side, then you flip it over and you cook it till it's brown on the other side. There's nothing in these that can't be eaten raw, so it doesn't have to be cooked to any degree, but I prefer to cook them until they are firm feeling. That way I know they're completely cooked on the inside and they're not going to be mushy in any way. There we go. They're formed, and now we just want to leave them alone for just a little bit. I'll let you know how long it takes before I turn them again, and I'll show you progress along the way. We're barely a minute into this, and I went ahead and turned the stove down to 3 because they're sizzling pretty well, as you can see, which is great, but I don't want them to burn. I want that first side to brown but not burn before I turn them. And you have to kind of watch them closely, because if your pot is hot, your pan is hot, they could possibly burn. They're okay like that, but I prefer them not burned. Now, for those of you who prefer to go with an oil-free method, I have tried baking these in the oven, 350, on a pan of parchment paper. I can say that I prefer them on the stove, cooked in a little bit of oil. They were on the dry side when I baked them in the oven, and they just didn't have the texture and the finish that I wanted on them. You may like them that way, and you're very welcome to try it that way, and if you can come up with a great way to make them not be so dry, maybe make them a little bit more moist, maybe add more water to them. It might help to make them not so dry when they're baked in the oven. We are 6 minutes into this, and I'm going to go ahead and flip these over. You see it's nicely browned, and I can't tell you that it's always going to work out at 6 minutes that you flip them. It really is going to depend upon how warm your skillet is. Totally going to depend upon that and how fast they're cooking. So that's just a rough idea for you to watch for. They look very nice. We want to allow them to cook on this side really until they're firm to the touch. Obviously they're not right now, but that's how I tell when they're really done, is just firm to the touch to me. Not like bricks, but you don't want it mushy. These have been cooking for 25 minutes, and they are nicely firm. They're not like little bricks, but they do have some firmness to them, which is just how I like them. These are not like pancakes, whereas you only flip them once. You can flip these more than once if you see that it's starting to brown on one side and you want a little more brownness on the other. Go ahead and flip them over and allow them to cook until you are happy with them. How long it actually takes is going to depend upon how hot that skillet is. Really, that's about it. And of course, if you make them bigger than this, than the half cup increments, they're going to take a little bit longer. I'm going to call these done. Again, this has been 25 minutes and I'm fine. I've cooked them faster than that before. I've cooked them slower than that before. But they've been on medium-low the majority of the time. So that gives you a frame of reference. Here are our 6 burgers, and oh, it smells wonderful in here, and you can use these any way you would any type of a burger patty. Give these a try sometime and let me know how it works for you. This is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. I hope this helps. Bye.